Oath Keepers is a group of military, law enforcement, firefighters, first responders, and intelligence community people that believe everyone in America, no matter what color your skin is, no matter what your financial position, should all play by the same set of rules. And those rules start with a foundation called the Constitution and the Bill of Rights.
They call themselves Guardians of the Republic, advertised as a nonpartisan association of current and formerly serving military, reserves, National Guard, veterans, peace officers, and firefighters who go by the name Oath Keepers. And at this moment, they are in Ferguson, Missouri to, as they say it, keep the peace. But does the community and local law enforcement want them there? Let's welcome to MidPoint the founder of Oath Keepers, Stewart Rhodes. Stewart, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Stewart, what makes Oath Keepers different from any other group that would go in armed and say they want to keep the peace?
Well, we have trained professionals. Our men are both current serving and retired military and police, and they're not paid. They're volunteers. That's the big difference. Really, the only difference between what we're doing here and a professional contracting company is our guys are doing it out of the goodness of their own hearts and not for money. And they are accepted by the community. In fact, we have the explicit support and consent of the property owners and the tenants in the apartments who live above the shops we're protecting.
But you do not have the express consent of the police department or the county officials in St. Louis County. They would prefer that you leave.
Don't need it. Why do we need their permission to do the right thing?
I think only because they're fearful that something might happen if there's more armed people on the ground. Can you at least see that side of their argument?
What's happened so far in the last week is we have thwarted several direct arson attempts on the buildings and multiple threats of arson, and none of our guys have ever had to use any force whatsoever. It's just bizarre that it's okay for them to come in as contractors. The very same guys, if they came in as well-paid, expensive contractors to guard some rich person's business, no one would say a word because they're coming in as volunteers. All of a sudden, everyone's losing their minds.
Can you can you see though from the other side of what their fear might be? Because there is always a fear that if you put armed people on the ground who are not police officials and are not representing the county, the state, whatever the government, that there might be the possibility of another conflagration.
Then why aren't they upset about private security companies who are well-paid that are there on the ground right now too?
I think they look at those as hired and not volunteer. I believe that's their
right.
problem.
That's the only difference is they're being paid. Why is that such a great stamp of approval?
Do we need more? I mean, let me ask you this, because what you're doing, then you believe in what you're doing, and so do the people there that you work with. Do you believe that you're necessary and that more groups such as yours need to move into other communities to help keep the peace?
I mean, you had 20 buildings burned to the ground. There was an obvious failure to protect the people of Ferguson. And part of it is a lot of these business owners can't afford to pay high-speed, low-drag, expensive contractors. If they could, they would have. But the ones who can't afford it, so only the rich get protection. And apparently, and as far as the governor's concerned, only government buildings and rich parts of town get protected. He left the poorer parts of Ferguson to burn, and it did. It's a fact.
Have you received any communication, or has anybody in the African-American community in Ferguson talked to you about whether they want you there?
Natalie Du Bois of Natalie's Cakes and More is a black lady whose shop we're protecting. She has certainly voiced her approval of what we're doing. That's good enough for us. And so many of her neighbors have also walked up over the last few nights and shook our hands and said hello. Last night I was out there talking to a couple of black gentlemen from North Carolina who came in to protest. So it's a manufactured divide along racial lines in the media and in the higher ups in the government. It's not there on the street. You got whites and blacks united on the street on the issue of police abuse of power. And I think they've got a point. It's an American issue. It's not just a black issue.
All right, it's something
but for us, it's about the Bill of Rights, and it's also about the right of people not to be burned to death.
People are certainly going to be watching, as I'm sure that you will, and you'll be watching what the media says about it as well. The group is the Oath Keepers. We're going to stay in touch here, and we're going to make sure, and we're going to kind of find out in a couple of weeks here what's happening and see how things are going, all right?
Good to go, thanks.
All right, we appreciate your time. Thanks so much. Hour 3 of MidPoint on the dance card. Former presidential hopeful and political activist Alan Keyes takes a few turns on Ferguson and Congress seeking to work with the president, and how deadly airbags are playing games with your safety.